the failure of the Democrats in terms of their messaging to create a readily identifiable villain that will draw their people out. Because again, it's like we've just been through a period of time where the Democrats were unable to deliver on their promises. And I'm talking about Biden's Build Back Better bill. They delivered some stuff, but we cut the bottom half of the 50%. The people in this country, the bottom half of the wealth distribution had doubled the wealth in the past 2 years than they had prior. And that was a function of things like the Earned Income Child Tax Credit delivered to you by Democrats. Great program. It diminished child poverty by what, a half?
Yeah, but Manchin said that might be used on drugs, so that's the other hand. But now they're going to bear the brunt of that electorally since it was not continued.
Well, if you didn't have Manchin and Sinema, they would have delivered on it. But the bottom line is they didn't. Yeah. It's not there. And so what you're offering Democratic voters is harm reduction. And we're aware of the harm that's associated with this. I think listeners to this program are aware of it, but you need to make it more explicit to people who don't spend their time digging deep into politics. And here is, let's start with Sanders. Do we have that clip of him from yesterday, which I asked for, where he was on the weekend talk show talking about Social Security?
I'll get that. Sorry.
Yep, get that. This is Bernie Sanders. And if you'll notice in the past, 5 days, the Democrats have become aware that they sort of dropped the ball. They're very slow in responding to these things. Their attacks on their response to inflation should have been, we saw a little hint of it in the Warnock debate, talking about corporate greed. So much of this has been about runaway corporate profits. They wouldn't do it. So they've been caught flat-footed on how to talk about inflation when it became clear sometime in September that the response to Roe v. Wade, for whatever reason, has been dying down. The repeal to Roe v. Wade has been sort of just digested by the body politic. Bernie is set up, apparently he's going on tour around in Nevada, I think in
Texas,
West,
Michigan.
Yeah. He's hitting Ohio. He's hitting those states where he has the most impact to draw people out. And but here he is talking about what I think the Democrats really need to make explicit.
It is astounding to me, and I think that the Democrats have simply abdicated and walked off the debate stage. They have allowed Republicans to do all the talking. The Republicans talk about inflation. Well, inflation is a serious issue. What are they going to do about it? Are they going to lower wages? Is that their response? Inflation is a global issue. Many countries around the world, it is sadly higher than it is in the United States. What are they going to do about the high cost of prescription drugs? Do they have the guts to take on the pharmaceutical industry? No, they do not. Right now, we are seeing, Anderson, just a literally unprecedented level of corporate greed in this country. People can't afford to fill up their gas tanks when they go to the gas station. And you're seeing the oil companies enjoying record-breaking profits. People are walk into a grocery store, food prices are going up. Food industry, record-breaking profits. Pharmaceutical industry, record-breaking profits. A significant part of inflation has to do with these large monopolistic corporations jacking up prices and hurting working families.
All right. And there was another segment where he had gone on to talk about the Republicans aiming at Social Security and Medicare. And here's how that's going to happen. Well, let's listen to you had Biden.
It is astounding to me.
You had Biden yesterday talking about this in his address, or I guess a Friday, talking about this in his address at the White House about Social Security and Medicare. Here is Fox News responding to that that talking point by Joe Biden, and it's fascinating. One, they're denying that it's the case.
Even though all the 4 Republicans who are vying to chair the House Budget Committee, if the Republicans take back the House, have said that they want to use the debt ceiling as a way to, essentially chip away at Medicare and
We'll get into that in one second.
Yeah, sorry.
And they're denying that it exists at all. And then they're saying, like, even if they did believe it, there's nothing they can do about it, which is also wrong.
Maybe next year, if you're the White House, if you're Cecilia Rouse, you're going on TV and you're saying, well, it's going to help Americans with energy costs. That's next year. A lot of the parts of the Inflation Reduction Act don't even kick in until next year.
Fair point.
Midterms are this year.
Also, he's going to say Republicans are going to lower taxes and they're going to change Medicare and change the Social Security. No, they're not.
No.
They can't. President Biden is still in the White House.
But also, they're not saying that they want to. They're not coming out and saying that they want to. Exactly, Dana. Exactly.
Carol,
But
thank you.
this is what happens.
I see. Well,
Yeah. Okay. There it is. All right. So let's dig into this. This is a piece by Bloomberg Government. They made one of these available, I guess. How can the Republicans, if they get into the House and they control the House and the Senate, or even just the House, how could they possibly cut Social Security? They're not even going to be in charge, says Wilhelmer. Biden's president.
Don't you know how government works?
Do they have any idea what's going on here? It's afternoon. Incidentally, it's after 12 p.m. So Emma mentioned this. There are 4 Republicans who are vying to serve as the House Budget Committee chairperson in the event that the Republicans take the House. And they said in interviews that they will use the vote to raise the debt ceiling and they will hold it hostage to essentially, well, let's see. Jason Smith, a Republican from Missouri, wants to use the debt limit talks to extract concessions from Democrats on entitlements and spending. Entitlements is what they call Social Security and Medicare. Jody Arrington from Texas and Buddy Carter from Georgia and Lori Smucker are seeking this top spot on the Budget Committee if Smith gets the Ways and Means role. These 3 Republicans agreed that they must use the debt limit deadline to enact fiscally conservative legislation, which is also the exact same thing. Cuts to Social Security and Medicare. Kevin Hern, Republican head of the Republican Study Committee Budgets and Spending Task Force, said the upcoming debt limit deadline is obviously a leverage point. Reminder, Congress passes a budget that says how much they will spend. The debt ceiling is essentially your credit card limit. Just for personal finance and government spending, not analogous, except for in this one tiny, rather conceptual, abstract way.
Yes, just because it's a mechanism that no other country except like apparently Denmark has, but they've done away with it because it's entirely useless. It's like useless. Another obstacle that Republicans frequently use as leverage points because they're like, hey, we'll tank the damn economy if you don't give us what we want, and that's what they're trying to do with this.
We go out with our budget, we spend the money, we put it on the card, and then we get the bill. And the question is, we don't actually pay the bill. We print more money. That's what we do. And we say, like, okay, we're going to pay the bill. That's what the debt ceiling, right? Raising the debt ceiling is. It's completely pro forma. But it has the ability, if we vote against the debt ceiling, to essentially have the U.S. government default on its obligations for the first time in its history. And so it becomes a very good sort of hostage-taking thing. It has been used relentlessly over the past 20 years.
I know, and that's what makes that video of Hemmer and Dana Perino being like, What can they do? Yeah, you guys live through Republicans using the debt ceiling as leverage for their like austerity measures multiple times over. It's purposely obtuse.
Here is Buddy Carter. He is one of the ones who's just must use debt limit deadline to enact fiscally conservative legislation. What is fiscally conservative legislation? Here's what Carter says. Our main focus has to be on non-discretionary. It's got to be on entitlements. Social Security and Medicare are discretionary budget items. They function based upon taxes that are specifically earmarked for these two programs. They exist based upon in their own silos so that they cannot be easily cut. They were basically set up in such a way that they wouldn't go through the budget process each time because it's very simple. People put money in, they take money out at a later date in their lifetime. It is social insurance. It essentially runs on its own. Every now and then there needs to be a tweak to make sure that you get over demographic bumps. That's why Social Security taxes were raised in the early 80s. Because the boomers were going to retire in a number of years, and we needed to prepare for that. There should be another adjustment to Social Security taxes wherein the cap, which now caps at around $120,000, your first $120,000 is subject to payroll tax. After that, not. It should be lifted. Because A, just as a matter of fairness, there's no reason why your payroll taxes shouldn't go up higher. As you get up the income ladder, but also because we used to capture 91%, 92% of the nation's income under the cap. But because of wealth disparity, now it's closer to 86%. There's your funding gap. When people say that Social Security is going bankrupt in 2033, what they're saying is the trust fund, the extra fund, is going to be empty. The amount that's collected will be able to pay off 70 to 80% of benefits as far as any of us are going to be alive. If you remove the cap, then we're going to be dead 3 times over before there's any issue in Social Security funding. So it's doable. But what the Republicans are starting to float now is the idea that we're going to raise retirement ages. We're going to raise eligibility years. We're not going to allow you to take even a reduced amount at an earlier age. And they're saying they're doing this based upon actuarial tables, but the fact of the matter is, to the extent that there has been any growth in the years lived by Americans, it is all in the top 50% income brackets.
Yeah, the actuarial tables they're using do not take into account that very simple solution of raising the cap that you suggest, right? It's just within the confines of our current structure. And even that, it's still going to be self-funding.
Right. The argument is like, we can't afford to do this because people are living longer. Actually, they're not living that much longer. If you look at the actuarial tables, you'll see, A, we have less younger births. But if you look at it from like when people reach the age of 60, how long are they living? It's not that dramatically different. It's gone up, certainly. But again, the gains have gone up amongst people who are high income earners because their lives are significantly easier on their bodies and they have more access to health care. And so, and where Social Security is needed the most is for those people whose lives have not extended. And then I would add this. They're also going to roll out means testing. There is a very simple way to apply means testing to every government program that exists. And instead of having to create a new apparatus that assesses whether your income is viable for benefits, we simply means test by raising taxes.
Mm-hmm. And when the reason they want to do it in the reverse is because it undercuts the universality of the program, and that is a very helpful way to chip away at social programs for Republicans.
It undermines the universality of it. It makes it more complicated and more bureaucratic. It diminishes the services that people get because you have to devote resources to assessing whether people qualify. If you've ever had to deal with your insurance company, they build into the system, we're not going to reimburse you until you put in a certain amount of effort. And we do that because then we can say that we actually reimburse. But we also know that 10, 20, 30, 40% of people are just going to say, like, this has gotten too complicated and walk away from it. That's just literally their business plan. And similar dynamic where the Republicans are hoping to make Social Security that complicated as well.
So, Sam, you outlined what non-discretionary spending is. Is military spending non-discretionary?
Military budget is discretionary, but it only goes up.
Yeah, and I would just say, the world's a scary place now. Biden should kill the debt ceiling under national security rationale. It's no time for malarkey like this.
Well, he can't unilaterally do it. This is the thing, is that he's in negotiations right now with the Senate to try and figure out how they can do this. They can get rid of the idea of the debt ceiling, or they can, somebody has suggested, make it like 40 quintillion.
Yeah. They should raise it as much as they can in the lame duck. I mean, that's what they're suggesting here. I don't think they're going to do away with the debt ceiling. I mean, they don't have the Democratic votes to do that, but they should.
They need,
but
in
they
the
should
Senate.
in the nature of national
Senate.
security. Come on, Matt. As you're saying, in the interest of national security, military spending should not be discretionary, or it should not be at the whims of whoever is in office. That's why we need to do away with any barriers on that front.
They need 60 in the Senate. And the only question is, I think my guess is they're probably trying to figure out if the sergeant at arms, or the parliamentarian, I should say, thinks the debt ceiling is eligible to go into a reconciliation bill. And I don't know if they have one more bite at the reconciliation apple. They might. But otherwise, they need to convince 8 or 9 Republicans, 10 Republicans. I think Murkowski has expressed some interest in it, to get them, over this budget ceiling hump. So we'll see. But that's where we're at, folks. And
I just think
Democrats right now should be hammering your Social Security is on, because it actually is. Because a debt default, I mean, I am sort of of the mind of let the Republicans default on our obligation, build up, and prepare to blame them so that they destroy a huge portion of business profits. And I mean, they will create such havoc that it will hurt their own peeps, as it were.
But the thing they're banking on is that Biden will be the president when this happens, and that he's going to pay an electoral price. So
Yep.
it's a gamble.
Yep. But they should be out there talking about Social Security and Medicare.
Oh, yeah.
Medicare right now.
Democrats are so bad at defining their opponent. Republicans are great at defining Democrats in ways that they aren't, like that they're socialists and communists and radicals, which is obviously not the case. So it should be fairly easy for the Democrats to define Republicans as what they are, which is as scary as it gets. And yet it's like an uphill battle every election cycle.
All right, we got to take a break, head into the fun half, wherein we will take your calls. But before we do that, we'll be talking to Xander Corvus, Summer Hart, and Queen Ava. They are organizers with the Southwest Mutual Aid Las Vegas. They've set up a mutual aid nonprofit to basically provide for sex workers in the wake of the pandemic. All right, we're going to take a quick break, head into the fun half. Don't forget, folks, your support makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only help this show survive and thrive, but you also get the free half free of commercials. And you get the fun half. What a deal. Win, win, win.